Hi, my name's Ollie, and in this Politics Explained video, I'm going to give you an introduction to A-level politics. We're going to go through a wide range of topics, including what you'll study, how you're going to be assessed, what the exams will look like, how to revise in A-level politics, how difficult it is, how to keep up to date, and lots of other things. The PDF you can see on your screen, you can access for free on the Politics Explained website, where you can also find a wide range of resources to help you in your politics A-level, including detailed essay plans, updated textbooks that update throughout the year once you've purchased them, as well as a place to sign up for tutoring and for the Politics Explained Classroom, which is a weekly membership to put you on the path to achieving an A-star in A-level politics. It includes exclusive videos every single week, weekly example packs, and a detailed weekly quiz to really help you improve your grade in A-level politics. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. So, starting off with what you'll study, and we'll first look at the Edexcel specification and then look at the AQA specification. They are largely similar in terms of what you'll study. So, if you look at the Edexcel specification first, which most people do, so you study UK politics, UK government, political ideologies, and finally one of global politics or US politics. So UK politics, which the vast majority of you will do in year one, or almost all of you. I've never really anyone who hasn't. Includes democracy and participation, which includes things like pressure groups, rights in context, the extent to which there is a participation crisis in the UK, how democratic the UK is, political parties, you'll look at all of the main political parties, also the fringe parties and the party system, electoral systems, where you look at referendums and electoral systems in use in the UK, and finally voting behaviour in the media, where you'll look at elections and the role of the media in UK politics. Also in year one then, you look at UK government, so that's also the constitution, including devolution, constitutional reform, parliament, including the House of Commons and the House of Lords, parliamentary scrutiny and lots of other topics. Prime Minister and the Executive, where you look at key case studies of Prime Ministers, but also learn how the Executive and the Prime Minister works, their relationship with the Cabinet, and you also look at ministerial responsibility. And then relations between the branches, where you look at the role of the kind of impact of leaving the European Union, sovereignty, as well as the kind of relationship between Parliament and the Executive, as well as the Supreme Court. So that's UK politics and UK government you normally do in year one. There's then also political ideologies, which you often kind of start in year one and finish in year two. So you have the core political ideas, which everyone studies, and they're conservatism, liberalism, and socialism. For all of these, you look at the thinkers, you look at the key different types of it's like strands and types within each ideology, and really look at the key questions are the extent to which there is agreement, disagreement within the strands. And then you choose one optional ideology out of anarchism, ecologism, feminism, multiculturalism, and nationalism. In year two then, the kind of final big topic is you choose either, or your teacher chooses either government and politics of the USA or global politics. So when you're looking at the US, you look at the US Constitution, US Congress, US Presidency, Supreme Court of Civil Rights, and democracy and participation. So similar topics to what we look at in the UK, but on the US side. And also comparative theories. And that really brings in the key part of this 3A and 3B. It's really comparing the US with the UK as well in parts of that exam. Global politics, similarly, a few topics: sovereignty and globalization, global governance, looking at the political side and the economic side, and you look at in that wide range of institutions such as the UN, such as the WTO. Global governance, including human rights and environmental, power and development, and regionalism and the European Union. And then comparative theories there, rather than comparing global to anything else, is like comparing within global politics, so different institutions and using different theories to analyse global politics and to compare within. Okay, so that's Edexcel. We'll have a look at the Edexcel exam in a sec, as well as the AQA exam. Quickly looking at the AQA specification, largely the same as Edexcel. There are a few small differences, but the topic headings are pretty much the same. There are few small differences. For example, on the UK side, in AQA, you study like party structures within the political parties, and you don't do that in the UK in Edexcel, but they're largely very much the same debates. So everyone studies there's no real choice, or apart from the optional ideologies, there's no choice in AQA. So again, you study government and politics, looking at the government of the UK and the politics of the UK, pretty much the same topics. They are largely the same topics, even if it's broken it down to 5. For example, with government of the UK, in Edexcel, they put devolution in the constitution topic, which is why there's 4. Then the paper 2 is government and politics of the USA. So that's again looking at very similar topics to do in Edexcel, also including a comparative element with the UK. And then finally, political ideas is the third paper here. So just slightly differently divided. So you have core ideologies, exactly the same as Edexcel, and optional ideologies. So you study one of nationalism, feminism, multiculturalism, anarchism, and ecologism. Looking at the exams and then starting off with Edexcel. In both Edexcel and AQA, you're going to have 3 written exams, which are 2 hours each. And obviously they're a little bit longer. Often you might have 2.5 hours if you have extra time. So Edexcel exams. So the paper 1 and paper 2 are identical in format. What you have is, first you have a source question and you get a choice of 2 questions. Then you have an essay question, you get a choice of 2 essay questions. And then exactly the same with an ideologies question, you get a choice of ideologies question. So paper 1, it covers UK politics and core political ideologies. So you first have that 30-mark source question on the 4 topics in UK politics: democracy and participation, political parties, electoral systems, and voting behaviour in the media, and it'll be on one of them. You get a choice of questions. It's phrased in the same way as an essay question, and it presents political text and data which provide arguments and counter-arguments you're going to use in your answer. You're going to explain these arguments, bring them in, and ultimately come to a judgment. You can see, pause the video, have a look at an example of what this looks like here. You then have very similar, a choice of questions on UK politics, but this is an essay question. So you've got to come up with the arguments yourself, and it starts with evaluate the view that. It's really about comparing the key arguments on either side of the debate and coming up with your own judgment. And again, you spend around 45 minutes on this. That's also if you don't have extra time. Example question here: evaluate the view that general elections in the UK are lost by the government rather than won by the opposition. And that's from the voting behaviour topic. Question 3 then covers the 3 core political ideologies and is worth 24 marks. So you're given a choice of 2 questions and you have to answer one of them. So you'll ultimately only be answering a question on one of liberalism, conservatism, or socialism. And they could do 2 questions on socialism and you have to do one. They normally do one of each. But you do have to revise all 3 of them, even if you only end up answering a question on one of them. It's a slightly shorter question. It's 24 marks and you spend around kind of 30 to 35 minutes on it. And it's really about, as I mentioned, the extent of agreement or disagreement within the ideology. For example, to what extent do modern and classical liberals, which are 2 different types of liberals, agree over the role of the state. Paper 2 then, as I mentioned, is very similar, exactly the same structure, where you have source question, choice of 2, essay question, choice of 2, and finally ideologies question. The only difference is that the source and the essay questions are on UK government, so on the constitution, parliament, PM and the executive, or relations between the branches, rather than UK politics. And then the ideologies question, where you also get a choice of 2 questions, but it's on the non-core political ideology that you study. So say you do feminism, you have a choice of 2 questions from feminism. Paper 3 then is formatted slightly differently. So it's first looking at, so it's the same for for global and US, sorry. So the first 2 questions are worth 12 marks. And then you have 2 essay questions out of a choice of 3. So if we look at US, again, 2 hours, 84 marks in total. You answer one 12-mark question from a choice of 2. And these start with examine and ask you to compare and examine the similarities or differences between the US and the UK. You'll see, because it's lower marks, you spend less time on it, around 15 minutes. So examine the ways in which the US and UK constitutions are similar, for example. So there you get a choice of 2 questions and you do one of them. Then you get a second 12-marker where you don't get a choice of. And it asks you to include one or more of the 3 comparative approaches: rational theory, cultural theory, and structural theory. So again, it's often analysing similarities or differences, but you have to bring in the comparative theory as well at the end. Again, this year I'm going to do a detailed video on the Politics Explained YouTube channel and cover a lot in the Politics Explained classroom on how exactly to do really well in these questions. And then finally, you do 2 essay questions out of a choice of 3, and they're the similar kind of format. to paper 1 and paper 2, where it's evaluate the view that. You've got a question, you've got to come up with arguments on either side and come to a judgment. For example, evaluate the view that congressional oversight of the president is ineffective. Then instead, if you do global politics, very similar structure. You start by doing one 12-mark question from a choice of 2. Again, it's looking at similarities or differences between different parts of global politics. You aim to spend around 15 minutes on this, so examine the differences between democratic and autocratic states in terms of their characteristics and consequences for the global order, or examine the differences between the ICJ and the International Criminal Court. Question 2 then, exactly the same as the US side, is a compulsory question with no options. It asks you to analyse the 2 comparative theories, so realism and liberalism. So they're different theories in global politics, because these are the key ones used to understand international relations and global politics, rather than comparing between the US and the UK for the US paper. Again, they start with analyse. You usually spend around 15 minutes on it. So analyse the differences that exist between realists and liberals and the ways they view human nature and power, for example. And then finally, exactly the same as the US paper, you then answer 2 essay questions which are worth 30 marks, and you get a choice of 3. Again, very much the same, evaluate the view that. You've got to compare arguments on either side and come up with your own judgment. AQA slightly differently, so it puts all of the UK into the first paper, which is 2 hours and 77 marks. And what you have, and you'll see this as a pattern in the AQA exams, is it's slightly different. It starts with short questions. These are 9-mark questions that ask you to kind of come up with 3 analysed points in relation to the question. So for explain and analyse 3 ways in which the results of elections have an impact on the types of governments formed in the UK. So no judgment, no AO3 involved here. We're going to go through the assessment objectives later in the video. Just kind of knowledge and analysis. What you then have, and they're all compulsory, you get no choice, you have to do all 3 of them. You then get an extract question, again, no choice here, it's compulsory. 25-mark extract question for a topic on the UK. Similar to the source question at Edexcel, asks you to kind of analyse, evaluate, compare arguments in the extract, and come up with your judgment where the evaluator is coming in. Feel free to pause the video and have a look at this one. And in the third question, you do get a choice. You get a choice of 2 essay questions, 2 25-mark essay questions about UK politics or UK government. You have to come up with your own arguments in relation to the question. For example, the UK is experiencing a crisis in political participation. Analyse and evaluate this statement. You have to come up with key arguments for that statement, key arguments against, and then you have to come up with your own judgment in the essay. Paper 2 then is completely on the US. Again, 2 hours and 77 marks. Section A, similar to the first paper, is 3 short questions that you have to do, all of them. The final of them includes one of the comparative theories, rational choice theory, structural theory, or cultural theory. And again, they're all asking you for 3 ways, so 3 very short, well, 3 points effectively. So 3 factors can influence voting behaviour in the US, and this can come from any part of the US course. You then have an extract question that again is compulsory, no choice, that's just on the US, it's not comparative. So that third question, that third 9-marker is comparative as well to the UK. This 25-mark extract question asks you to analyse and compare arguments in the extract about a topic from US politics, whether that be Congress, the presidency, democracy and participation, or anything else. And then finally, you get a choice of 2 essay questions for section C, but crucially, these are comparative as well. So you have to come up with your own arguments in relation to the question, but they're ultimately about comparing the UK and the US. So the UK Supreme Court has become judicially and politically important as the US Supreme Court. Analyse and evaluate this statement, for example. In AQA then, the final paper is on political ideas. So obviously what we saw with Edexcel is it kind of combines UK and political ideas. The AQA spec keeps them separate. So again, first section is 3 compulsory 9-mark questions. And here this is on the core ideologies, and it's asking you about the thinkers. So you have 1 on socialist thinkers, 1 on liberal thinkers, 1 on conservative thinkers, and asks you for kind of 3 points on each of them. You then have an extract question on core ideologies, so on 1 of liberalism, conservatism, or socialism. No choice here as well. I'm going to ask you to analyse and evaluate and compare the arguments from 2 thinkers from that ideology. So you need to link it to the overall ideas of the ideology as well and bring in the different strands. And then finally, you bring in your non-core question. Here, obviously, you can choose between the non-core ideology, but you'll only be studying 1 in class. You actually get no choice in this final question. It's a 25-mark essay question and you get no choice within the ideology. So in Edexcel, you get a choice. You get 2 feminism questions, for example, or 2 nationalism questions. Here you just get 1 that you have to answer. So that's the introduction to Edexcel and AQA, the specifications and what the exams look like. What we're now going to have a look at, really important, is the assessment objectives. So there are 3 assessment objectives in A-level politics which are used to determine the level and the mark of your answers. These are what the examiner is going to be using when they're marking. There's an equal split across the exams between all of them. Obviously, some questions they don't necessarily have AO3 in, the judgment, for example, the 9 markers or the 12 markers, but the extract questions, the 25 markers, have all of them. A1 is knowledge. So this is your knowledge and understanding of political institutions, processes, concept, theories, and issues. This is really what you know. Accurate and up-to-date knowledge on the topics and the specification, the key terminology, and recent examples to evidence your point. A lot of people think it's going to be way more important than it is. Okay, it's only a third of the marks you get in the exam. It's not just about what you know. You can't just put that down on the page. It's really about answering the question, coming up with a judgment and comparing arguments. That's where AO2 and AO3 come in. So AO2 is analysis. It's asking you to come up with these arguments, recognizing parallels, connections, similarities, differences. These are the arguments in relation to the question. This is you analysing your points and the significance of them. And then finally, AO3 is the judgment. This is where in the essays and the extract questions or the source questions, you need to not only compare arguments on either side and bring in knowledge to evidence them, bring in examples to evidence them, you need to answer the question and come up with your own judgment. The best judgments are ones that you haven't just picked one side of the argument. They're ones that you've thought about it. You've compared the sides, really thought about and decided and explained what you think. That needs to be in your introduction, needs to be coming through and consistent through your main paragraphs, and it needs to be in your conclusion as well. A lot of people think that AO3 you can just bring in the conclusion. Conclusion you can't. It's a third of your marks and it needs to be running through the whole essay. Quickly, we've got whole videos on this, but how to structure a 25 mark or 30 mark essay. Again, there's guides on this for source question, ideologies, questions, and essay questions. I need to update them a little bit. Obviously, all the updates advice you can find within the classroom. But crucially, the advice for all of them is that just always use the wording in the question, directly answer the question. In any exam, that's going to be the most important advice, almost in anything you do in university as well. Answer the question is the most important thing. And always plan your essay. So what we really recommend in the 30 markers, I know that the essay writing video I did is slightly out of date now, where it recommended 2 different structures. We already now really recommend one of them. And that's where you have 3 main body paragraphs with a for argument, and against argument, and a mini conclusion. It could be against for and switch around. That doesn't matter to me at all. But it has to be kind of comparing the 2 arguments and then having a mini conclusion. Then you have an introduction before those 3 paragraphs and a conclusion. If you can't write 3 paragraphs, I've seen a lot of students do really well writing 2 as well. So that's dependent on how much you can write. You can definitely push up to an A and possibly an A star with 2 paragraphs if you simply can't write, don't have enough time or can't write quickly enough to do 3. So that introduction, setting out, defining key terms, laying out the arguments briefly or the paragraphs, and then crucially coming in with your judgment. What's the argument you're going to make in the essay in relation to the question? Your main body paragraphs, and then comparing arguments. They might have topics, for example. Look at the video that's soon going to be on the Politics Explained YouTube channel on planning essays. So it's kind of an example of the things we're going to cover in the classroom to show how you can kind of plan essays and structure essays. And then, so then you kind of want a for argument, against argument, and crucially a mini conclusion at the end of each to say which one was the most persuasive, and then conclusion, bringing it all together, and the final punchy statement of your argument. In terms of 24 mark Edexcel or ideologies questions, these are slightly different. Because they really focus on the extent of agreement and disagreement within the ideology, and because you have less time, around 30 minutes to complete it, your answer is going to be shorter than the 30 mark essays. What we really recommend for this is kind of, rather than doing for and against paragraphs, it's having an introduction, conclusion, of course, as normal, and you want your argument in relation to that question in those, in the introduction and the conclusion. And your 3 main body paragraphs, what we really recommend is having 1 agreement paragraph, setting out the argument that there's more agreement, comparing the strands within all of them, and then 2 disagreement paragraphs doing exactly the same. They're all about comparing the strands and the extent to which there's agreement or disagreement. Or you can have 2 agreement and 1 disagreement. Again, I go into a lot more detail on a different video on the Politics Explained YouTube channel. We're going to go into loads more detail in the classroom every year if that's something you're interested in getting more detail on. How then do you achieve an A-star in A-level politics? A couple of things. First thing is really knowing the exam technique. Essay writing is the foundation of A-level politics. You need to understand the AOs and know how to write an A-star level essay. You need to make sure you're having enough judgment, having complex enough judgment. You need to have complex analysis. You need a really well-structured essay. It's really about getting down that essay technique, and when you're revising throughout the 2 years of your A-level, you need to be doing writing at every stage. You can't just be reading through notes and do a bit of writing every here and there. You need to be practicing your writing, and that's how you're going to push up to the A-star. Staying up to a date is really important. The examples are going to change, the content's going to change even after you studied it in class. Again, we help with that with the example packs in the Politics Explained classroom, but you can very much do that yourself as well. And just to add on here as well, there's a lot of content in A-level politics. It's about keeping on top of it, practicing it and revising consistently in year 12 and year 13, and the best way to do that is through essay plans. How do you stay up to date? There's a few ways to stay up to date. So in the Politics Explained classroom, we're going to do up-to-date example packs every single week to help you keep up to date. But if you're doing it yourself, it's just about reading through the news, keeping up to date on the BBC, Politico, The Guardian. Watching PMQs is a really good thing to do every week, and there's a number of podcasts which are really good, including news agents, UK and USA, newscast, political fix, the rest is politics. Just really make sure you're following the news every week so that you don't miss anything. Follow Politics Explained on social media as well, and we'll kind of update you with a lot of examples each week. And if you want us to do it for you effectively, obviously you're going to have to go and revise them afterwards. You can join the classroom. We'll compile the key examples from every week and also test you on them in the quiz. How should you take notes? So to take effective notes, you should allow essay questions to guide your knowledge. You should really always be thinking about arguments either side, and always be thinking about judgments when you're thinking about these notes you're taking and the key questions you're likely to get asked in the exam. The textbooks on the Politics Explained website do that. They come up with the key questions at the start of every part of the course and divide it based on kind of key topics and how they'll be asked in the exam. Most textbooks are out of date by the time they're published. There are some really good ones, but there's a reason I've made the updated textbooks on the Politics Explained website. I believe they're kind of comprehensive. They cover everything you need to know. And once you've purchased them, they consistently update in your account throughout the 2 years of your politics A-level. So you've always got those contemporary examples and updated content. How to revise for A-level politics? I'm going to do a whole video on this. So we've got videos on the YouTube channel, and obviously the textbooks do it as well, and they're even more updated, going through everything you need to know in terms of the content. For me, the best way to revise is essay questions. So doing detailed essay plans for questions and practicing writing as well. If you have a bank of really detailed essay plans for questions that are likely to come up, you're going to be really well prepared to answer not just those questions, but also different ones from similar topics. We've got detailed banks of essay plans on the Politics Explained website, if you want us to do that for you, effectively that cover kind of really key topics. And last year in the exams, they prepared people really, really well for them, because almost all the questions were very similar to the ones in the essay plans. How much work then is A-level politics? It's a lot. A lot of people take A-level politics thinking it's going to be much easier than it is. It's almost as much content as A-level history. It's really, really difficult. You need to keep up to date with everything that's going on as well. So don't go into year 12 especially thinking it's going to be easy. And the best way to do it is to kind of revise consistently and work hard from year 12, so you don't get to year 13 not knowing anything from the year 12 content and then having to learn the year 13 content as well, because then you'll just be immediately behind when it comes to year 13. So work hard from year 12, recognise it's a lot of content and you're going to need to revise a lot, and just prepare effectively. How can Politics Explained help you to kind of reach an A-star and do well in A-level politics? The wide range of things on the website that can really help you. So as I mentioned, we've got these updated online textbooks that are really, really detailed, cover everything you need to know and are consistently updated. Detailed banks of essay plans for US, UK, and ideologies, and soon on global as well, that are really detailed, including up-to-date examples and an evaluation. Again, they'll be updated in your account once you've purchased them. We've got a free weekly blog covering examples, recent examples, difficult content, and model paragraphs. Sign up to the newsletter if you want that in your inbox every single week. And crucially, we also have the Politics Explained classroom, which we're launching this year, and this is a weekly membership to put you on the path to achieving an A-star, and that includes every week a detailed, really detailed quiz to test you on key parts of the content from year 12 and after Christmas from on the US or global content as well. Updated example packs every single week to make sure you don't miss key updates, especially if you're off at year 13, you're not studying the UK content anymore, as well as 3 exclusive videos every week. One's going to be a Q&A video answering the key kind of questions you have about A-level politics. One's going to be a detailed essay writing video looking at a particular part of essay writing, whether that's introductions, main paragraphs, evaluation, analysis. Again, we're going to have one every week, so it's going to go through a lot throughout there. And in those, we're also going to be giving feedback to members of the classroom's essays and main paragraphs, which should really help you improve. And then also one video going through difficult parts of content. I'm going to do some essay planning. I'm going to go through the content and really show you the best ways to understand it and revise it in A-level politics. And of course, on the YouTube channel, we've also got a lot of free videos, including on how to write essays, everything you need to know guides to help you in A-level politics. So yeah, hopefully that was a useful introduction to A-level politics. Hopefully I haven't scared you off from it too much. It is a really, really interesting subject that I think introduces politics really well. And at the end of it, you do have a really, really good knowledge of politics in the UK and the US if you take it, or global politics and ideologies. A lot of students I speak to find it really, really enjoyable, but it is important to recognise that it is a lot of work. It's not an easy subject, and if you really want to do well, you're going to need to work hard, and you can't with A-level politics just cram at the end. It's just not possible like it was with GCSEs. Yeah, let me know if you've got any questions or comments in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next video.